sponsors. Okay. Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labush, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissen Hara Nissen ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. In memory of Malka Mann, our former member, and in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah Bad Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. The many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Harav Akiva. Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edel Bas Yaakov. Month of Learning, okay. Ending today, Jill and Perry Meltzer, in memory of her father, Yaakov ben Yosef. Ending today, B. Pizer, in memory of her mother, Rachel Bat Shammai, and her stepfather, Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi. Josh and Carol Sanborn, in memory of his mother, Chiana Bas Aryeh Leib, and his father, Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. Mel and Haran Haller, in memory of his mother, Fega Bas Yaakov. Andrea and David Dolney, in memory of her mother, Edel Sina Bas Shimshon, and friends of Bella Silverstein, Bela Bas Yaakov. A week of learning, ending today by Minnie Shavrik, in memory of her husband, Yeshayahu ben Nehemiah Mordechai. Also ending today by Marcus and Arlene Aleha Shalom Taylorman, in memory of his mother-in-law, Esther Bas Nachum, and his father-in-law, Tuvia ben Yosef. Also Phyllis and Gedalia Reese, a week of learning in memory of her father, Harav Yosef ben Harav Shimon, and Tova and Leo Zimmer, in memory of her father, Aaron ben Yosef Mordechai. Today we have a day of learning plus Torah fund, sponsored by Gary and Toby Greenstein, in memory of his father, Yitzchak Isaac ben Chanuch Henoch. I have, going back to earlier in the week, Mel and Janet Schiff, in memory of his mother, Leah Bas Yaakov HaKohen. Today, Hetty and Terry Augenbraun, a day of learning in memory of her father, Pinchas ben Chaim. Tomorrow, Shabbos, a day of learning by Zahava Baum, in memory of her mother-in-law, at the Roizer Bas Shimon. And Shamas have an Aliyah, Kranker Rafia, Velti Ashir Ashur Mataliyah, and L'chol B'nai Yisrael, a good gebenched yar.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, Bob, Smendy.
Amen.
Zev, good, okay. Where's Erwin this morning? Is Erwin on?
Yeah.
Yeah?
There he is.
Yeah, okay.
I'm here.
You're here? Okay. All right.
Where are we learning?
All right, we're going to go, we're on the top of Kaf Yud Bet Amud Aleph. Okay. Now, remember we've seen a lot of discussion of what we're calling superstitious practices associated with the Shadim and Mazikin and things like that. And as Bob, I believe, raised the question the other day, nevertheless, we find it here in the Gemara. And my suggestion was that part of the fact that it was included, okay, could very well have been that different groups had Masorah how to deal with these situations, and included therein are the various remedies. That's why we saw oftentimes the Gemara says, Mai takante, what's the remedy? What's the approach under these situations? Okay. Now, on the top of Kaf Yud Bet, Amud Aleph, okay, we saw that the Gemara gradually is moving into health-oriented elements as well. We saw at the bottom of Kaf Yud Aleph Amud Beis with a reference to washing one's hands before eating certain foods, and now we continue that motif, right? The Mesucha Velo Masha Yade, one who is involved in bloodletting, okay? Remember, that was a very common medical practice for many, many years, not just in the time of Chazal, but all the way up till past the Middle Ages to modern times.
Even 30s, yeah.
And, okay, it says, Velo Masha Yade, and does not wash one's hands. Mafchid Shiva Yome, okay, is going to be afraid. What does it mean, afraid? Will have to be suffering, okay, for 7 days to follow. The Shakil Mazia, okay, one who cuts his hair, Velo Masha Yade, and again does not wash hands. Mafchid Tlata Yome, okay, will be afraid. In other words, we're just going to be suffering 3 days, okay? Remember, and even still in Israel today, there are sometimes problems with lice in hair, and not washing properly can transfer that. Next, the Shakil Tufre, one who cuts his fingernails, Velo Masha Yade, okay, and again doesn't wash the hands afterwards. This is a little bit more of a superstition. Mafchid Chad Yoma, okay, can suffer 1 day following. Right, going on. Velo Yada Ma'ika Mafchid, and they don't know. Is it that we don't know what they're suffering from? Okay, the Gemara is going to suggest, again, another example. Yada Usya, the Darga Lepachta. Okay, putting one's hand, according to one translation, on one's upper lip. According to another translation, it's on one's nostrils. Is going to cause this pachta, this fear, this illness. Okay. Again, yada aputa. Okay, putting one's hand on one's forehead. Okay. Darga lashinata is going to lead one again to sleep. Right. Tana, another braita. Ochlin umashkin tachet hamita. Okay, the braita telling us that if one who stores foodstuffs or drinks under their bed, okay, afilu mechufin bekli barzel, even if it's covered in a metal container, a container made out of iron, ruach ra'ah shora alehen. Some sort of evil spirit can nevertheless settle on them. Again, we might identify this from the area of shadim and things like that, but it borders still also on health issues as well. Tanu Rabbanan, says a new braita, Lo yishte adam mayim, lo belele reviot, velo belele shabbatot. A person should not drink water. Now, remember the question of the source of the water, particularly in Bavel, since it was an area full of rivers, streams, swamps, things like that. So where you got your source of water was very significant in Bavel. Lo belele reviot, not on the Tuesday nights, velo belele Shabbatot, and not on Friday nights. Ve'im shata damo berosho mipnei sakana. And if he did drink water on those cases, he could put his life in jeopardy because of danger. Mai sakana, ruach ra'ah. What is the danger? Evil spirit. In other words, what we would call today, there could be bacteria in the water that would cause illness. Okay? Continuing. Ve'im tzache, and if the person is thirsty, itakante, what's his remedy? Namely, this is the Gemara, he should say as follows. Shiva kolot she'amar David al hamayim v'hadar nishte. He should say a incantation, which we've pointed out to be usually a recitation of psukim, which has 7 mentions of the voice of Hashem in it, and then drink. And so the Gemara is now going to cite it for us. Shana Amar, as it says, and we're all familiar with the text. Hashem al hamayim, Hail hakavod hirim, Hashem al mayim rabim. Kol Hashem b'koach, Kol Hashem b'hadar, Kol Hashem shover arazim, Vaishaber Hashem et arzeh halvanon. Kol Hashem chotzev lavot eish. Kol Hashem yachil midbar, yachil Hashem midbar kadesh. Kol Hashem yecholel ayalot, v'yechasof ya'arot uv'hechalo kulo omer kavod. So that whole section then, right, would be encouraged to be recited, okay, and then drink. Now, v'ilo, and what happens then, let's say if the person doesn't remember the section, okay, or he can't find it in his chumash, okay, in his Tanakh, what happens? Nema hachi. He should say the following: Lul, Shafan, Anigron, Anirdafun. Okay, these are the names of Shedim or Mazikin. Bein kochvei yativna. But among the stars I sit. Bein bilei shmini azilna. I pass between thin people and fat people. Okay. In other words, telling Mazikin, you Mazikin, instead of taking me, have an impact on somebody else. Okay. O ve'ilo, and if not the case, ika inish bahade, if there is someone along with him, what should he do? Init are, he should wake him up, v'lemele, and tell him, planya bar planata, so-and-so, sachena maya, I'm thirsty for water. In other words, somebody else should get it for him. V'hadar nishte, and then he can go on and drink it. But the Gemara, however, now tells us some additional concerns. Ve'ilo mekarkash nichtama, okay? And if he doesn't strike or rattle a top or a lid on a chatzva, on a keg, right? V'hadar nishte, okay? Then he can come and drink. Okay? Now, what does this sound strange? Okay, this statement. But remember, they used to also keep water in barrels outside of their home. And if the barrel was not covered, there was the fear that snakes might get into the water, right, and put their poison into the water. Right. So theoretically, by banging on the lid or the top of the keg, if there were snakes there, it would move them away, and the person would know whether or not the water was safe for drinking. V'ilon nishte, okay, ba midi, okay, and if not, if he can't do that, he should throw something inside, right, and then drink. No statement. Tanu Rabbanan, again, says the Braita, Lo yishte adam mayim, lo min hanaharot, v'lo min ha'agamim balayla. Notice clear statement, says the Braita, that a person should not drink water from the river or from the swamps, right? At night, ve'im shata damo b'rosho mipnei hasakana. And if he drinks, again, he's putting his life in danger. My sakana, what's the danger? Sakanat shavriri. Again, it's a fear of blindness. Okay. Now, whether it was total blindness or temporary blindness, the implication again being the fact that such sources of water could be very detrimental. Ve'itzache, and if he's thirsty, maitakante, what is his remedy? I'ika inish bahade, if there's another person along with him, lemale, so say to that person, palnaya bar palonata, so-and-so, tzachena maya, I'm thirsty for water. Ve'ilo, and if there's not another person, nema, ihula nafshe, he should then say the following to himself, palnaya, calling himself by his name. Amrali imi, my mother told me the following, is daher mishviriri, be careful because of this potential blindness. Shavriri, bariri, riri, yiri, ri. In other words, again, saying this sort of incantation that reduces the name of the illness to minimum. Now, Tzachena Maya, okay, if he is thirsty for water, Bekase Chevare, okay, he should drink it in white earthenware containers, okay? In other words, basically, the way we might say it, something that you could visibly see the water, okay, and see if there's anything in the water. Right? Okay, now we stop this discussion and we move back to our discussion from our Mishnah, where we said, remember, that even the most poor should nevertheless receive enough money from the community plate in order to purchase wine for the holiday. So the Gemara responds, Shita, isn't that obvious? Lo nitzracha ela afilu l'Rabbi Akiva. It was not needed except for the statement by Rabbi Akiva, the Amar who said, Aseh Shabbatcha chol va'al titztarech lebriot. Namely, better that you should make your Shabbos meal like a weekday meal. In other words, less fancy, less significant, so that you do not have to rely on charity by other people. Okay. Hacha mishum presume nisa. But here we might argue that it's important to be able to have 4 cups of wine, because that's part of the miracle recognizing our redemption from Yetziat Mitzrayim. And therefore, says the Gemara, Modeh, that maybe in this case Rabbi Akiva would agree. However, the Braita continues. Tana de Eliyahu. It was taught then in the Academy of Eliyahu. Afal pi she'amar Rabbi Akiva. Even though it was Rabbi Akiva who had said, Shabbatcha chol va'al titztarech lebriut. Make your weekday Shabbos meals like weekday and don't rely on people's charity. Aval osehu davar mu'at betoch beito. Nevertheless, he must do some shinui, something different in his home to help him remember that it's Shabbat and it's a different day. Mayin ninhu. So what are we talking about? Okay, asks the Gemara. Amar Rav Papa, suggests Rav Papa, Kasa daharsana. Maybe he changes the meal a little bit and eats cooked or fried fish. Keditnan, as taught elsewhere in a Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema Omer. He says, Have eiz kanamer, v'kal kanesher, be quick, right, or strong as the leopard, as quick as another animal, the eagle, ratz ketzvi, run as quickly as the deer, v'gibur ka'aryeh, and as brave as the lion, la'asot ratzon avicha shebashamayim. Okay, in other words, one must make an effort, even if they're poor, to designate Shabbat as a unique and special occasion. Tanu Rabbanan. Now from here, since we saw that Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema made this suggestion, Gemara is going to continue now with a number of examples of sages who basically share what's called lessons for either their family members or for their colleagues in terms of appropriate behavior.
Would they have said this because they grew up in poverty?
Well, I don't know if I would say they grew up in poverty. We do know that there were certain members of Chazal that were relatively well off. Okay, some had gone into business as well and were successful. Okay, but the majority of people, you're right, lived a life that was certainly limited in their means, and therefore, okay, they would direct ideally their better meals or better clothes or things like that in association with the Shabbat and Yom Tov. Okay? But that's a good point. Thank you. So we have the following, and we mentioned Rabbi Akiva already, one of his perspectives. So now we continue. Tana Rabbanan, says a new Braita. Shiva Dvarim Siva Rabbi Akiva at Rabbi Yehoshua Beno. 7 things he instructed his son, okay, Rabbi Yehoshua. Bani, al teshev begova shel ir. My son, don't sit at the top of the city. In other words, at the high point of the city, many people will come by and try to interact with you. According to the Koran explanation, it will keep you from your studies. The second, right? Vitishna. Why? Because then the question is trying to learn there. Second one, Va'al tidor be'ir shirasheha talmidei chachamim. Don't dwell or live in a city where the governing authority are sages. Okay? Why? Because again, according to Koran, the suggestion is that they will be so busy with their learning that they won't pay adequate attention to the infrastructure and the needs of the townspeople. Next example, third one. Va'al tikanes leveitcha pitom. Don't enter your home suddenly. Kol shekain lebeit chavercha. How much more so to your neighbor's home. Okay? In other words, always knock on the door or always say hello or something like that. The third, another example. Va'al timna mina'alayim meraglecha. And don't limit having shoes on your feet. In other words, don't go around barefoot on a regular basis. Again, another example. Hashkem ve'echol. When you get up, eat fairly early. Why? B'kayetz mipnei hachama. in the summer months because of the heat of the day. Ubechoref mipnei hatzina. And in the winter months because of the cold.
Cold.
Right? Va'aseh Shabbatcha chol va'al titzarech labriut. And here's that other example. And make the meals of Shabbos, if you do not have the money, okay, make it like weekday so that you don't need to rely on charity.
Well, are they saying that you should eat before Shacharis on Shabbos?
No, not necessarily, okay? But the other idea is that, remember, I could give you a different example, namely, daven shacharis early. Once you've said shacharis, you can eat, and then you can continue with Torah reading and musaf, okay? That's in the certain Jewish summer camps. I remember distinctly, that was the practice. We would bring the kids in daven shacharis, then bring them to the Chadar Ochel for breakfast, and then go back to the Beit Knesset or the Ulam, wherever, okay, for Torah reading and Musaf. Okay. Actually, not this past summer, but the previous summer, I visited a shul where they almost have that practice. They daven shacharis, they went into a separate room, had little cups of wine or grape juice and small pieces of cake, made a quick kiddush, and then after that, they actually had a discussion on the week's parsha for 20 minutes or so. Then they went back in and read the parsha and musaf.
We follow that practice on Simchas Torah.
Good, that's true. That's true. Well, we do it more individually, but not collectively with the whole kehila, right?
In the yeshiva, we used to do that on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Before Tkiyas Shelfa, we used to make it, break, have kiddush, and then come back and continue.
And when Nina and I have gone away for the Yom Tovim, that's a very usual practice that they have at the catered event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a Yekeshul?
Probably not.
Okay, let's go on. V'havei mishtadel im ha'adam shehasha misacheket lo. Okay, and try to make the effort, he says, to interact with somebody when, so to speak, fortune is shining on them. Okay, that the time is right for them. Okay, so the question is, what do you do with in terms of that person? Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, lo mizvan mine, lo lezavune le. According to Rav Papa, that last suggestion of Rabbi Akiva, you shouldn't buy from them or sell to them. Ela lema'avar shutfut bahade, but rather you make a partnership with them. Vahashta, the Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak. And now that this was said, Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, Mai dichtiv, on what basis do we say this? Ma'aseh yadav bracha, okay? Barachta, that the fruit of your hands have been blessed. Kol hanotel pruta me'oyev mitbarech, that one who gains money from an enemy is blessed. Afilu lemizban mine v'lezvune lai, even to buy and sell from him. Shapir dami, that's even better, because you've changed that, let's say, enemy, competitor, into something else. Right? New statement. Chamisha dvarim tziva Rabbi Akiva at Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. There were 5 things that Rabbi Akiva, okay, directed to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, k'shahaya chavush b'veit ha'asurin, when Rabbi Akiva was being held in prison. Amarlo, remember the Roman authorities, right? I did that. We said, Rabbi, okay, so Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says to him, Lamdeni Torah, teach me Torah. Amar eini melamdecha, I can't teach it to you. Amarlo, he said to him, Im ein ata melamdeni, if you don't teach me, ani omer leyochai Abba. He says, if you don't teach me, I'll tell my father, umosrecha lemalchut. In other words, I don't have any force to convince you, okay, to coerce you to teach me, because even if I were to tell my father that he should hand you over to the Roman authorities, that's not coercion because you're already in jail by the Roman authorities. Amarlo bani, he said to him, my son, yoter mima sha'egel rotze lineg, para rotze lahanik. More than the calf wants to suckle, the mother cow wants to get nurse. Amarlo, he said to him, umi besakana, then who is the one really in danger? V'halo egel besakana. Okay, but then isn't it the one who wants to nurse in danger? Amarlo, he said to him, im bikashta lehanek. Okay, since you lechanek, if in this case, play on the word lehanik and lechanek. Okay? If you want to result in hanging, in other words, if you want to be condemned to the death penalty, strangling, hayet led ba'ilan gadol, then you would be hanging on a tall tree. Okay? In other words, you should learn in depth, learn from people who can give you a lot of knowledge. And when you teach your own son, lamdehu b'sefer muga. Okay, teach him from a corrected text. In other words, make sure that remember, we've often find sometimes that when they cite a Braita or cite a Mishnah, one of the questions is it mishubashta? Is it the wrong text or is the text proper? Right? And that's what he's saying here. Maihi, what does that mean? Amar Rava, says Rava, v'itema Rav Masharshia. Okay, bechadata. Okay, we're talking about something new, a new text. All right, shebeashta. Okay, kevan da'al. Okay, a newer text rather than a text with errors. Okay, and if you have that, because if you have a text with errors and you learn from it, you're going to continue to make the same mistakes. Further advice: Lo tivashel b'ketera shebishel b'chavercha. Don't cook in a pot that your neighbor has already cooked in. Sounds strange, right? Well, what does it really mean? Mai nihu, asks the Gemara. Answers, grusha b'chaye ba'ala. A divorced woman in the life of when her ex-husband is still alive. Why? Da'amar mar, because the master said, garush shenasa grusha, a divorced man who marries a divorced woman, arba deot b'mita. There are 4 minds in bed. All right, everybody I think can understand that. Yeah. V'ibayat ema, and if you want, I might even say, afilu ba'amana. It might even be somewhat similar to the question of marrying a widow. He says, Lefi she'ein kol etzba'ot shavot. Because we say, do we have to go on? That not all fingers are equal. Okay, and here they're using fingers, I'm suggesting, as a euphemism for another male part of the body.
Right.
Okay? All right. Now we go on.
Right.
Here you can see we got a lot of material here. Mitzvah veguf gadol ochel parot velo sachar. Okay? What are we saying here? That the mitzvah and a guf gadol here, okay, for a healthy person, a healthy body, is to eat the fruits, okay, in other words, gain, right, but not look for reward. Mitzvah v'guf tahor, again, a mitzvah, and to have a pure body. Nosei isha v'lo banim. Okay, he marries the right kind of woman, and they have good children. Further, new Braita. Arba advarim tziva Rabbeinu Hakadosh et banav. There were 4 things that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, directed his sons. Number 1, al tador b'Shichnatziv. Don't live in the city of Shichnatziv, which was another major city in Bavel, not far from Nahardea and Mechoza. Mishum de leitzne havu. Why? Because they are leitzanim. Umashchulach belitznuta. Because one translation is that they are involved in mockery. Okay? Leitzanut also might mean sexual immorality as well, but the implication is that particular town had a bad reputation. Okay? Even though occasionally there were sages that wound up living there when necessary. Va'al teshev al mitat aramit. Another advice, don't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. What does that mean? Ika da amri. There are those who say this is what it means. Delo tigne below kiryat shma. It means don't go to sleep without first reciting Kriya Shema. Ve'ika da amri, and others explain it, delo tinsa v'giyorta, not to marry a convert. Ve'ika da amri, arama'it mamash, and the others say it means a actual Aramean woman. Umishum ma'aseh de Rav Papa, because of the incident that happened with Rav Papa. Now, the Gemara does not cite the incident here. However, the Meforshim tell us that it was the fact that Rav Papa was going to collect a debt from an Aramean woman who invited him inside her home and told him to wait on the bed while she was getting the money. Underneath the bed, however, was a dead infant, and then she accused Rav Papa of having committed the murder, and he was forced to flee from the local community. So that's the story there. Furthermore, Va'al tav, so we needed that to help understand that there are situations, that one may flee. Va'al tavriach atzmecha min hameches. He warned them, don't flee from trying to pay one's taxes. Dilma mashchulach v'shakle minach kol de'itlach. Because if the Roman authorities catch up to you, they will take all your property from you. Again, another point from Va'al ta'amod b'fnei hashor b'sha'a she'oleh min ha'agam. Don't stand in front of an ox when it first gets up from the swamp, from the water. Mepnei shehasatan miraked bein karnav. Why? Because Satan dances between his horns. In other words, it could be that the ox is crazy and will attack. Amar Rebbe Shmuel, Bashor Shachor. We're talking particularly about a black ox. Ubiomei Nisan, and during the month of Nisan. In other words, in the springtime, that's when oxen become, is there the season for mating.
In heat.
That's the concern. Okay. Tani Rav Oshaya. This is Rav Oshaya. Marchikin mishortam chamishim amma. One should ensure themselves, keep a distance from a short tam, at least 50 amma. Umishor mo'ad, excuse me, kemelo einav, and from a mo'ad ox, as far as the eye can see. Tana Mishmei de Rabbi Meir. We now find the following advice suggested from Mavi Meir. Reish Torah B'dikula, if the head of the ox is in a basket, in other words, the ox is busy eating, what's going to happen afterwards? If you're close to the ox, he suggests, sak la'aigra, go and climb up a ladder onto the roof, v'shade darga mitochetach, and push the ladder down. Okay, no weight so that you're far enough away from the ox. Amar Rav. Rav says the following: what happens if you're being chased by an animal? Nizha, cry out to Torah. In other words, if an ox is crying, chasing you, what do you cry out? Hain, hain. Nizha da'aye, if a lion is chasing you, what do you cry out? Zeh, zeh. Nizha degamla, if a camel is chasing you, you cry out da, da. Okay? Nizha da'arba, if a boat is bearing down on you, okay, what do you cry out? Hilani, hiya, haila, vihiluk, hoya. Okay? A number of statements, perhaps to get the attention of the sailors or the men on the boat. Amar Abaye. Abaye comes with the following: or a hide, dag, fish, vikos, a cup, chamin, hot water, ubeitzim, eggs, v'kenim levanim, and white lice, kulan kashin ledavar acher. All of them lead one to this other ailment. The ailment there he's suggesting Abai is leprosy. Or a hide, man degane a mishka detzela. If in regards to a hide, one who sleeps on a skin of a tanner. Dag, a fish, excuse me, shibuta b'yomei Nisan. It's eating the kind of shibuta fish during the days of Nisan, in the springtime. Question is, what's the status of that fish? Kos, a cup. What do we say here? Shi'uri kasa daharsana. We're talking about if one is eating a cup of leftover fried fish. What's the what's the status of that food? Chamin, hot water. Chamime de chamime, mishadru eloyu. Okay, that very hot water, can be problematic if he pours it on himself. Beitzin, eggs, man de madrich aklipin. Okay, question is, with eggs, if one steps on the shells, the egg shells. Kinin levanim, white lice, man de machver levushe. It's a situation if one wears a particular kind of garment, velo natir le timnaya yome, and he doesn't wash or clean the garment for 8 days, v'hadar levushla, and then he puts the garment, wears it again, briin hanach kinin. Okay, then this is a result that creates these kinds of lice, v'kashin ledavar acher, and that's going to lead then to this davar acher, this other ailment, accordingly leprosy. Now, Amar Rav, bless you. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, the following: Beta, to eat Bei Shumra, a house that has a cat in it, lo ni'ol ba inish below sane, that a person should not go around without shoes on. Why? My tama, mishum de shunra katil lechivia. Why? Because a cat would often kill a snake. Va'achile Okay, he would eat parts of the snake. Ve'it be b'chavya garme katine. And the snake has small bones. Ve'iyativ la garma dechivya akara. And if one were to sit, okay, this would cause the bones of the snake, okay, to enter their feet or walk on them. Lo nafik, you won't be able to get the bones out. V'istakenle, and it will cause harm to the person. Ikeda amre, and there are others who explain this as follows. Beta delit beishunra, in a house where there is no cat. Lo ne'u be'inish bahakara. Okay, a person should not go there around barefoot in the darkness. Ma'itama, what's the reasoning? Dilma michrich be'chivya, perhaps a snake will enwrap itself around his foot. Velo yada umistake. He would not know and endangers himself. Again, new piece from the Gemara. Shlosha dvarim tziva Rabbi Yishmael b'Rabbi Yossi et Rabbi. Three things. Okay, Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi, okay, taught the Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Remember, they were colleagues, okay? But because Rabbi Yossi had been Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's teacher, they were more than, he was so like a Talmid Chaver. Makash Siman. The mnemonic device was three things. Mem, Kof, Shin. Number one, the Mem. Al ta'asmum ba'atzmacha. Don't do any kind of wound to yourself. Maihi, what do we mean? Lo tahave lach dina bahade tlata.
Now you're going to have to switch.
All right, I'm going to have to move.
You're echoing. You're going to mute yourself or turn it off.
Hold on.
Must be the cleaning girl again.
Watch out for snakes.
Put on your shoes. Uh-oh, I think we lost him.
We don't hear you, Rabbi Green.
We don't see you either.
There's no sound coming out of your...
He lost his connection again.
Okay, we're all good?
Yeah, now you're on. Okay.
Okay. All right. What about seeing? Okay. All right. So what happens? Don't cause harm to yourself. Va'al ta'amod al hamekach b'sha'a she'en lecha dami. Is a second. Don't rely on yourself to be involved in a purchase at a time when you don't have money. That was the second. I'm going to explain them all in just a moment. Ishtecha tavla, and if your wife has come up from immersion, al tisakek la laila harishona. Don't have relations with her the very first night. So what is he saying? When he says don't cause yourself harm, what he's saying is don't become involved in a case, a court case, where you might be involved, let's say, with three people, and one of those people is your the person you're challenging in court, but the other two people could claim that they're witnesses, and they may be in cahoots with the person that you're challenging in court. So don't go into a court situation where it's 1 versus 3. Okay? So that was that first case. The second example, being not involved in sale when you don't have the money, basically it makes sense that if you can't support your purchase, right, you're going to lose the sale. Okay? And the third, now as we continue, why does he say wait other than the first night when the wife has immersed? Okay? Amar Rav clarifying it. Ubenida deoraita. We're talking about a situation if that woman was considered a nida from a Torah perspective. O'el v'hu chazak ma'ayan patuach. Because it could be that that in her nida period, she had a ongoing flow, and who's to say for sure, even though she's immersed, that it has totally stopped. Dilma mishkach ziva, because perhaps then it'll be discovered that she will be considered a ziva, one who had a later, again, emission of blood. New statement. Shlosha dvarim siva Rabbi Yossi b'Rebbe Yehuda et Rebbe. Again, 3 things that Rabbi Yossi b'Rebbe Yehuda taught Rebbe. Al teitzei yechidi balayla. Don't go out alone at night. Va'al ta'amod b'fnei haner arum. And don't stand in front of the candle naked. Va'al tichanes l'merchatz chadash shema tifchat. And don't enter a new bathhouse, okay, lest it collapse. Ad Kama asks the question, how long do you have to wait after the new bathhouse has been built? Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Ad Bet Chodesh. He suggests wait a year.
12 years.
Right? Va'al ta'amod b'fnei haner arum. What does he mean when he say don't stand in front of a candle nude? Tanya. Why? Because Ubraita teaches. Ha'omei b'fnei haner arum have nichpa. Okay, that one who stands before a candle naked, okay, can become ill with epilepsy. V'hamishamesh mitato la'or haner havyan lo banim michvim. And one who has relations by the light of the candle, okay, could result in children that have that same illness. Tanu Rabbanan, again, a new Braita. Hamishamesh mitato al mita shetinok yashen aleh. One who has relations on a bed in which a child is sleeping. Oto tinok nichpa. That same child might become ill, epileptic. V'lo amran ela delo have bar shata. And we did not say this except if the child was a year old. Aval have bar shata lit lan ba. But if the child is more than a year old, it's not an issue. V'lo amran, and we didn't say this. Ela degane lahade kare. If the child was sleeping at one's feet. Aval gane lahade reshe. But if the child was sleeping at the head, litlan ba. There's nothing to this. V'lo amran ela delo manach yade eluya. And we said this, we didn't say this except if one puts his hand on the child. Aval manach yade eluye. But if he puts his hand on the child, there's nothing to it. Again, back to the earlier statement. Al teitzei yechidi balayla. Don't go out alone at night. Tanya, as taught elsewhere in a Braita. Okay, lo yetze yechidi b'layla, lo b'leilei reviot, v'lo b'leilei shabbatot. Don't go out alone at night on Tuesday nights or Friday nights. Mipnei she'agrat bat machlati. Why? Because of this female demon. Namely, Ushmona Esrei Rebo Shamalachei Chabala Yotzim. Because along with her, they go out 18,000 other demons. Okay. B'kol chad b'chad, yesh lo reshut l'chaber b'fnei atzmo. And each demon has the power to cause harm
Damage,
to a person. So the Gemara wants to explain. Me'ikara havushchiche kuleyoma. Originally, these demons were found all day. Zimna chada paga b'Rebbi Chanina ben Dosa. One time, this female demon, encountered Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa. Amra le, and she said to him, Ilav de machrizan alaych berakia. If it were not that they had announced about you in heaven, Hizaru b'Chanina u'b'Torato. Be careful of Chanina and his Torah. Sakantich, I would have harmed you. Amarla, and he said to her, Ichashivna berakia. If I'm so important in heaven, gozerani alaych shelo ta'avori b'yishuv olam. That I declare that you should never pass through inhabited areas forever. Amrale, and she said to him, B'matota minach, I beg of you, Shavak li ravcha porta, give me a little space. Shavak la lele shabbatot v'lele reviot. He allowed her the space of Friday nights and Tuesday nights. V'tu chada zimna paga be abai. And furthermore, says the Gemara, there was another time when he met Abai. Amrale, and she said to him, Ilav de mechprezei la'aich berakia. Had they not announced about you in heaven, Hizaru Nachmani. Watch out for Nachmani, Uvatorato and his Torah. Havasakantich, I would have caused you harm. Amarle, he said to her, Ichashivna barakia, if I'm that important in heaven, Gozreni alaichi, Shalo ta'avori b'yishuv la'olam. I declare that you will never pass among inhabited areas forever. Ha kachazinin da'avra. But here we see that she does pass. Okay? And the Gemara is going to continue, okay, with the just finishing up. Amrei Hani Gizyata. Okay, and therefore we say Minhu Deshamte Susya Va'atu Divrei Laho. Okay, why do we say that they pass? Because we know there are certain paths, says the Gemara, that these demons flee. Why? Because they lead their horses, okay, along certain paths, right? And therefore, there is this concern that one should be careful at night going out on one's own. And we'll stop right there. Wish everybody a good Shabbos, right? And stay well, everybody. Okay.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Shabbos, Rabbi, thank you. Good Shabbos to all. Have a great
Shabbos, everyone. Good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Have a great day.
Everyone